What is up, everybody out there in podcast land? Welcome to the latest episode of Sports Frenzy 2.0, a much more upbeat vibe to start this episode than last week's unfortunate incident on Monday Night Football.
Yep. Great news is a follow-up from what was near tragedy last week. Damar Hamlin has been released from the hospital. He is at home and will begin his physical therapy from there and at the Bills facility. So in a little over a week, what a hell of a turn of events.
Yep, very, very happy. And of course, the voice of optimism to my right here in our Sports Frenzy studio is the Conquistador Dave Height.
Along with the maestro Kevin Crane.
It's playoff time, kids. Fantasy football season over and done. Pick season almost over and done. Now it's time to get down to, as they say, the nitty-gritty.
The brass tacks.
Unfortunately, once we get to our picks, Wild Card Weekend has 6 games, of course. There are a couple stinkers because of injuries, because of other issues we'll discuss later on. But recapping Week 18 of the NFL season, of course, some games looked like they weren't going to matter and ended up mattering, and vice versa.
Yeah, it was a weird weekend.
I have a stat that I have not heard anybody else call out yet. So I'm going to take credit for this, even though I'm sure this happened in past weeks in other NFL seasons. Like you said, weird week. And there were some stinkers in Week 18 as well. The Dallas Cowboys, the New Orleans Saints, the New York Jets, and the Carolina Panthers. 4 teams, 4 professional football teams. One of them actually playing for a game that could have mattered in Dallas.
Yeah.
Those 4 teams, Dave, how many points do you think they scored combined?
Combined? 21.
Oh, boy, you're really being negative now. You went from optimistic to pessimistic just like that. Now, 29 combined points. Those 4 teams scored a ridiculously pathetic 29 points combined in Week 18. There were 8 other teams in the NFL in Week 18 that scored at least 29 points or more.
There you go.
I found that to be a very interesting statistic.
Absolutely crazy.
And, of course, we start off with your Miami Dolphins backing into the playoffs.
Oh, my God.
In the ugliest game of – well, it was between the Dolphins, Jets, and the Panthers Saints for ugliest game of the weekend.
Absolutely. There's
11-6, the Dolphins win. With Skylar Thompson.
They had no business winning that game.
Thompson. Okay.
They had no business winning that game. None at all.
Yeah, you better get used to his name because supposedly
Skylar
he's going to be in line to start.
He is. Today they ruled Tua out.
I've heard Bridgewater still working on trying to get in game shape.
They're prepping Skylar for the start.
Right.
He's their healthiest option.
Yeah, and that's why right now the line is ridiculously high, almost 2 touchdowns in favor of the Bills.
As it should be in this regard.
Now, of course, my Buccaneers had already secured the pathetic, lowly AFC or NFC South title. First losing season ever for Tom Brady as the Buccaneers finish at 8-9. But they won the division. He gets in the playoffs. They get a home game.
Seattle had a hell of a run as a under 500 team making the playoffs.
Yeah, and they won. That was the Marshawn Lynch game,
yes,
as I recall, in the playoffs. The one that set off the seismographs.
Yep.
So anything can happen. And now, of course, our Chicago Bears lost to the Vikings 29-13.
First quarter of that, Frickin' Peterman throws a bomb downfield. What are you doing? Why are you trying to compete?
Because in a miracle ending, who would have thought arguably two of the three worst teams in the NFL would have put on the best show of the weekend?
My God.
Until at least Sunday night. Texans beat the Colts on a Hail Mary and a 2-point conversion. Lovie Smith goes down as the Texans coach, a Bears legend.
Exactly. There's memes out there of Lovie in his Texans shirt saying, "This was the greatest victory in my Bears career."
So now the Bears have all sorts of options as they now have the number 1 overall pick coming up in the 2023 draft. The first time the Bears have held the number 1 pick since 1947.
That is crazy.
To think about all those stinky teams the Bears had in the 70s.
There were teams worse than them.
Yeah, that amazes me.
It boggles the mind.
So now, of course, all the speculation begins. What is Poles going to do with the pick? He came out and he said it would take an absolute devastating offer to blow him away in terms of trading Justin Fields away and drafting a quarterback number 1. Already I'm hearing people saying that was a good move. That was a dumb move. He should have just shut his mouth and not said anything. Whatever.
You know what? It is what it is. If somebody really wants Fields, they do have to put up to get him. Or they're going to have to put up to get the number 1 overall pick. The Bears hold the cards right now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They got to wait as long as humanly possible to make any kind of deal.
We got to look.
Somebody's going to panic just like they did.
What type of draft capital do the Colts have? Because their GM is already making rumblings. He will do whatever it takes. Ballard knows they are screwed on the quarterback front.
Yeah, and now the thing is with the Texans, I'm hearing people, the Texans are going to get a quarterback if the Bears, Bears aren't going to draft one. Well, that's fine, but are they going to get number 1, the one they want? Are they going to take sloppy seconds?
Right. Or are they going to pony up?
And then how many other teams behind them are going to, like you said, with Chris Ballard and the Colts, want to jump up and get the guy they want, whether that's Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. And I'm hearing
you can get the draft picks for it. Also, you can get ready-made players. And the Bears need a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, don't get me started on the news that came out yesterday about Roquan Smith getting his 5-year extension with the Ravens, because the Bears had plenty of goddamn money to give him that.
Yes, they did.
5 years, $100 million.
Good for him. Not having an agent, negotiated on his own. He held his ground. He played chicken with the Bears, and he won.
Yep. Stupid ass Bears.
He won.
Stupid ass Bears. They had all the money in the world to be able to sign him to that deal. They are going to have to knock this draft out of the park to win back Bears fans 100%.
Absolutely.
And I'm one of them.
Yep, they went all in to tank and blow it up and get the cap space. Now it's time to put up.
Yep.
And
I'm on record, and
already Poles is saying he doesn't have any expectations for 2023 to make a run, which is probably the smart move because they're 2 drafts away from filling all their needs. So they need to get some serious talent for the 23 season, and then the 24 draft. That's going to be another key component for them to make a run in the 24 season.
But I just want to go on record right now. And if you want to go with me, I think you're fine. I think not at least keeping Roquan Smith on that defense and paying him was a dumb, stupid move. And it probably set us back, I'm going to say, another year.
Easily.
Because you don't know. I watched that Green Bay Lions game. We'll get to that in a second. Sunday night. Aiden Hutchinson, he can play.
He's a monster.
He was a number 2 pick last year. And of course, that's the speculation, is if the Bears hold on to the pick, they're going to take the Alabama pass rusher. But there's no guarantee he's an Aiden Richardson.
Right.
There's no guarantee.
No, there's no guarantee with anybody.
There is no guarantee. But again, are they going to get enough trading the pick, given how they've been screwed in the past and how much they've had to give up, especially with the Mitch Trubisky deal?
That was ridiculous.
The Fields trade looks better now.
That actually was reasonable, what they gave up to move up down there. What they gave up to move up, one spot to get Trubisky was absolutely stupid.
Right.
Nobody was going to take Trubisky. That was Pace panicking.
Yes, and that is the one move, as much as I've tried to defend him, that I can't defend. I can't defend that. That was dumb beyond belief. But we'll see. The Bears need players. And I'll tell the other move that I don't like, and I've said this for the last couple months. The Chase Claypool trade is looking really stupid right now.
Yeah, it's not
if
looking
they
good.
Can't integrate him into this offense next year, it was a complete and total waste. Basically, what they did was they ended up giving Roquan Smith to the Ravens for a 5th-round pick, pretty much.
Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely because we kept the Ravens pick, and we traded away our pick.
Right.
So it's even worse.
Yeah. Because the Steelers wanted the higher of the two.
Right. Dumb. All right, moving on to other teams. I'm still confused about this. Dave and I were talking about this in show prep. Now, we all know the circumstances from last week's cancellation of the Bills and the Bengals. If the Bills and the Chiefs play in the AFC Championship, that game will be a neutral site game. But my question is, and I still can't find verification on this, why are the Bengals getting screwed in this whole deal? If they play the Bills next weekend in the divisional round, why is that
for Buffalo? I read an article before we taped here. They're considering their options for a neutral site.
They should say it's
a
neutral
be in
site.
Place. There's no reason not to.
If the Bengals had won that game, and they were winning that game at the time it got stopped and eventually canceled, the Bengals would have tied the Bills with the same record and had the tiebreaker by beating them head-to-head. So why is everybody just glossing over this bullshit where the Bengals are getting hosed in this whole deal?
Because the NFL and all their brilliance are expecting the marquee rematch. That's why they're not putting the Bengals are considered second tier now.
Yeah, you better watch out for that, because they beat the Chiefs this year, and
yes,
they were on their way to beating the Bills. And of course, both the Bills and the Bengals beat the Chiefs.
Exactly.
So again, the Chiefs somehow get their asses kissed by the NFL, and we'll get to them a little bit more later. They are rapidly turning into, next to the Cowboys, the most hated team in the NFL.
With their ring around the rosy bullshit.
Yep, we'll get to that later. Don't ruin my dumbasses of the week, Dave. You're going to have to play the game, so. All right, of course, it was Black Monday. Not racist.
Nope. Of course, Lovie, in trying to go for 2 to lose the game outright instead of trying to go to overtime, they miraculously got the 2-point conversion. He gets fired. It backfired on him.
Then, of course, you've got all the liberal outlets. Oh, look at the Texans and how racist they are, because now they've fired 2 African-American head coaches in 2 years, one and dones. So the Texans now are basically a branch of the Ku Klux Klan, according to CNN.
That's what you get from CNN. Anyway, yeah, that's even too far for me to go.
But I feel bad for Lovie. He gets stuck outside of the Bears situation. When he took over the Bucs job, taking over the Texan job.
Maybe he did coach to win to get fired to get the hell out of that train wreck of a situation. That is an inept organization that has no clue what they're doing. So
they had a little
good
run.
for him to get the hell out of there, because who would want to coach for the Texans?
They had a little run there for a while where they made the playoffs, 4 or 5 years in a row, where they looked pretty good. J.J. Watt, of course, D'Amico Ryans, who will end up being a major head coaching candidate this offseason once the 49ers are done.
Yep.
And that could be a long run.
Yeah.
And, of course, we all knew this was coming, but the circumstances around it are fascinating.
Cliff Kingsbury being let go, and then the general manager stepping aside.
Now, of course, what's interesting on first point, Cliff Kingsbury just got a contract extension less than a year ago. So now the Cardinals will be paying him in his beautiful opulent house, his manor that we've seen on TV here recently. And I don't blame them for firing him. I blame them for giving him the extension.
Everybody is so damn quick to give extensions, and they're not warranted 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, it's not just Notre Dame that does it. But, yeah, Kingsbury to me always looks panicked on the sidelines. Eyes are red and bloodshot.
My God, look how long it takes him to get plays called in. When you can't get on the same page with your quarterback that you brought in specifically, then you have no idea what you're doing.
Speaking of the Arizona Cardinals quarterback, like you said, they were brought in together. They had that bond from college. Supposedly we're going to work together, mesh together well. Obviously didn't work. But now we go to the other side of the issue, where I don't think it was just Cliff Kingsbury. The front office has got issues, and that Steve Keim stepping away might be smart on his part, just like you were talking about with Lovie Smith.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray, they've already said, the owner has already come out and said, will get input in the decision on who will be the next head coach.
You do not allow the players any input in that decision. That is absolutely awful. That completely undermines the authority of the coach coming in.
Yeah, what GM wants to come in? Again, Keim steps away, so now you got to hire a GM. What GM wants to come in knowing that he's got to kiss Kyler Murray's ass? And Kyler Murray's not even a top 10 quarterback right now.
He's a bottom feeder.
You have already gone on record as the owner to say he gets a say in the next head coach?
That's absolutely ridiculous. No GM will come in. No GM will take that seriously.
I think they are going to have a hard time finding a coach and a GM.
Yeah.
No, I really do.
Nope. You can't have that.
They're going to have to get really lucky and get both positions, bring in somebody really young, a coordinator for a coach, a first time, a guy who was a player personnel guy at a mediocre team.
Yeah. Kyler Murray has done nothing to warrant that kind of say in any way, shape, or form.
No. Now, other coaches and other coaching situations, which again, fascinating to me. Now, the Broncos somehow think they're the shit.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
They're in the shitter, all right.
Well, they think, we're going to talk to Sean Payton. We're going to talk to Jim Harbaugh. Why would those two even consider going to Denver with no draft picks because they gave them all away to Seattle?
And for a Russell Wilson who looks like he can't get out of a paper bag right now.
There is no way in hell. Now, number one, they have to trade, quote unquote, for Sean Payton.
Right. They've got nothing to trade.
Right. So it'd be Harbaugh or nothing. Or, again, they're going to have to go down the road of coordinators, and they just blew that one completely up with Nathaniel Hackett. Heard one guy on the radio calling Buddy Hackett.
Yeah. Oh, no. Matt LaFleur has already said that he would consider bringing Hackett back to run the Packers offense next year.
Some guys are meant to be coordinators.
Right. We've talked about that time and time again.
Charlie Weiss, for all the damage he has done across
as a head coach,
the college
he was
football
a coordinator.
Spectrum, could run an offense. It was when he had to be a leader of men
that he failed miserably.
Now you move to the West Coast, to the Los Angeles Rams, where now all of a sudden Sean McVay, in what I'm hearing is unprecedented.
He's giving all of his coordinators and coaches, everybody on staff, permission to look for other opportunities.
Now, number one, how does he have the power to give that permission? Shouldn't the GM and the owner be involved in that? Maybe they want to keep some of these guys on staff
potentially
if McVay decides to leave. Does McVay really have the right to come in and say, you guys go look for another job without consulting the GM, without consulting the owner? And the Rams
maybe that's just giving permission. Hey, you guys want to go seek employment, go for it. But they still would have to ask the ownership group because they're still under contract.
Still sounds hinky to me.
There's hinky. I would not be surprised if McVay walks here shortly.
Oh, God, after this, yeah. It wouldn't shock me at all.
Although there were rumblings that he wasn't going to come back for this year.
Yep, absolutely. And my man Boomer Esiason, of course, had to get his 2 cents in as he's been so fired up lately. You know, of course, we talked about his comments about Mac Jones being a douchebag. Now, he chimed in on the Sean McVay thing when this news broke, and he said, this sounds like an absolute millennial issue. He sounds like a millennial baby when things don't go his way, when he has one bad season. Now they've traded all the picks away, so he knows it's going to be a long rebuild, potentially, with this team. He's going to bail. And I gotta say, Boomer might be right on this.
He might be right. I mean, you were looking at it. That's why he didn't want to come back for this season. He saw the writing on the wall. They went all in. Hence the T-shirt, fuck the draft picks.
Yep. So the Rams could end up going real quick from the top of the heap down to, potentially.
Football hell?
Well, here's the thing. Everybody's now starting to talk about next year's draft, 2024. And everybody's starting to drool over Caleb Williams, saying he's a generational talent. He could be the next Pat Mahomes. Could the Rams tank? I don't know if they have that pick in 2024.
I don't know that they would.
That's the thing. So Tankathon might not even apply. They'd be giving that pick to the Seahawks or the Lions, somebody.
Yeah.
With one of their trades they made, Stafford or Wagner or, whoever.
Very interesting.
Very interesting week in the NFL. Very interesting week. Oh, and I should note, going back to the Bucs for just a second, giving props to the GOAT, the man, the myth, the legend, Tom Brady, set the record. He did play part of the game against the Falcons, set the record for attempts in a season, 736, and completions, 490. So, once again, the GOAT, setting more marks, setting more records. When we get to our picks, I'm going to say I hope Dave is right. That's all I'm going to say for now.
We will see.
I guess we should talk about the 2023 Hall of Fame finalists, pared down from 28 to 15 here recently. Of course, there is one name that stands out to us. He better damn well get in. He better damn well get in. The greatest return man of all time.
Yes.
Devin Hester makes a cut along with just randomly some names. Joe Thomas, lineman for the Browns, Dwight Freeney and Reggie Wayne from the Colts, Darrelle Revis, the great cornerback, and from the Miami Dolphins, your Zach Thomas. I don't know if
Good, he's not a Hall of Famer.
But you and I have high standards. That's the thing.
We do. Freeney, yes.
See, I don't even know if I put Freeney in.
Freeney was a game changer.
I'm just questioning Joe Thomas.
Yeah, I don't. Why? He's good, but not great.
But yeah, everybody seems to think he's a lock.
He wasn't a game changer.
No, I think Revis is the one lock, in my opinion. He was one of the better cornerbacks of the last 20, 30 years. But we shall see. They will announce that here coming up soon as we get a little bit deeper into the playoffs. And, of course, one final note before we move on to our quick recap of last week's games. Yes, there will be spillage.
There always is. Do we talk Packers-Lions?
Yes, that's where I was going to go, actually. Yes.
Excellent.
I mentioned the Texans-Colts game was nutty, cuckoo, crazy. I believe the final score on that was 32-31.
Yep.
The Seahawks setting the stage earlier in the day. Took them till overtime. The Rams kind of looked like they gave up at the end. In overtime, Seahawks win. I believe 19-16 was the final score on that. So the Seahawks were alive, but they knocked the Lions out.
Yep. And God forbid, Dan Campbell was not going to roll over.
So we get to the Sunday night game. Luckily, I watched it. There's part of me that said, why? Lions don't have anything to play for. And then something in the back of my mind.
Watch this thing.
This is the guy that said he wanted to bite people's kneecaps off. You really think he's not going to at least try to make the Packers' lives a living, breathing hell? And he did.
And it was beautiful. And once again, the Packers show they are a bunch of cheap shot artists.
Yeah. We were talking about
pathetic.
the Chiefs earlier. Now, again, we're stepping into dumbass territory here, so let's tread lightly. But, yes, they had a lot of things that they did in that game. Let's put it that way.
The most egregious that was not even frickin' called. Jerron Reed throwing a forearm into DeAndre Swift's head.
Bent him backwards.
Him backwards, knocked him out of the game.
Yep, no flag. Yep.
I'm still waiting to hear about suspension for next year and a fine. You hear nothing from the NFL.
Fucking Derwin James, I'm still on that one from a couple weeks back. Never got anything.
Why are you letting the Packers get away with this bullshit?
Yeah, the Packers are up there with the Chiefs and the Cowboys in terms of, in my humble opinion, America's most hated teams. But never fear, Dan Campbell is here. The Lions show guts, determination, grit.
Swift and Williams ran all over the Packers, and Jamal said, F you to his former team.
Lions win 20-16, and Jamal Williams,
and it wasn't even that close.
And Aaron Rodgers threw one of the most egregious interceptions to basically seal the deal. Where I heard people say in New York, if Zach Wilson had thrown that ball,
he would have been
they would have
to hell
burned him
back
at the stake after the game. But Aaron Rodgers gets away with it, and he's sitting there screaming and yelling. They showed him on the camera. Basically,
it was his damn fault.
Yeah, he was acting like it was everybody else's fault but his.
Nope, that was all on him.
And of course, they had to make excuses for
little
him.
baby.
They had to, oh my God, there's reports out there that he had a tough time with his thumb during
Nobody cares. He's a pampered, entitled little bitch who got what he deserved.
But that leads me to my point where, again, the evil, the devil, they always get what they want. Do you realize Aaron Rodgers is now dating?
Yes.
Mallory Edens, the daughter of Bucks owner Wes Edens.
Yeah. Stay away from that train wreck.
He falls bass backwards into good luck.
Yes, he does. All right. Stay tuned for a quick promo. Spillage coming up in segment 2.
When your day of dealing with international intrigue is over and you've settled down in your Aston Martin, call up Sports Frenzy 2.0 on your phone or smart car stereo. Every Thursday, Kev Dave will take your mind off the megalomaniac who just had a laser pointed at your genitals with the best sports criticism around. And don't forget to listen to the Weekend Edition every Saturday so you can plan out your entertainment options with the femme fatale of your choice. Grab a martini, shaken, not stirred, and check out Frenzy, Sports Frenzy 2.0.
All right, kids. Segment 2. You know it's spillage on Sports Frenzy 2.0 here as we record on January 11th, dropping Thursday the 12th, 2023. As always, I'm the Conquistador Dave Height.
Along with the maestro, Kevin Crane.
And where can you find us, you ask? You should know. Spotify, Anchor, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Amazon, Audible, Apple, Overcast, CastBox, and Stitcher!
Only a few weeks left to catch our football picks. They will be on our Facebook page throughout the playoffs. And then, of course, we start up all over again with NASCAR picks in mid-February. Now, we got to wrap up what we were talking about in segment 1. We're limited by Spotify. We love them, Anchor, but they keep cutting us off when we get on a roll. Still talking about the Lions and the Packers. Now, did you hear Jamal Williams, the running back for the Lions, in his post-game interview?
I did not hear that.
Okay, now, of course, during the game, again, extra game, we've got to start dealing with the fact that some of these records that are falling here last year, this year, and into the future are going to be different. Now,
It's been that way for a long time.
When we went from 14 to 16, we're going to go to 18 probably at some point.
It's going to happen.
But, of course, Jamal Williams broke Barry Sanders' touchdown record for the Lions. But, of course, they grabbed him and Jared Goff after the game to interview them. Of course, the two stars of the game, along, again, with my opinion, Aiden Hutchinson, the disruptor on defense. But when they interviewed Jamal Williams, man, you want to talk about like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde or Harvey Dent Two-Face. He starts off breaking down in tears, saying that his great-grandfather died. And, you know, he's got the ball, the game ball, and this is for my great-grandfather. And then at one point he says, grandfather. Okay, that's fine. And he said, this is for my, my great-grandpa. And all of a sudden, within like 2 seconds, Switch says, but you should not dismiss the Detroit Lions. We are dogs. And he just starts going off on this rant about, I saw the goddamn people on TV. I don't watch TV, but I heard about the people on TV who said, we're all taking the Packers. How you feeling? Oh, but my great papa, I feel so bad for him. And I miss him so much. He literally was going 180 on the personality shifts.
Wow.
You got it, you kids. Go out there. Again, on a podcast.
You can't make that up.
I can't, of course, get you to watch the video clip. You got to go out and do the research on your own. But check out the post-game interview on NBC Sunday Night Football with Jamal Williams. And you guys tell me, drop us a line on our Facebook page. You tell me if that guy is not shifting personalities a couple, 2-3 times in the minute-plus interview that they did with him. But again, great victory for the Lions. That puts Seattle into the playoffs. So, looking back one last time at last week's games, just to clean up anything we missed. Bills beat the Patriots, so the Bills lock up the number 2 seed. Mac Jones throws 3 picks. Bill Belichick does not sound happy.
Nope. Patricia's going to be gone as offensive coordinator. That's coming down the line. They will be looking for a new quarterback.
And again, 8-9 season, not really great for the Patriots, but in terms of player personnel, Belichick has nobody to blame but himself.
Exactly.
And we talked about the train wreck that was the Dolphins and the Jets. The Giants played the Eagles really, really tough, even though the Giants sat everybody, played their third-string quarterback. Eagles had to play to lock up the number one seed, so they brought Jalen Hurts back and still could only win 22-16. So I don't know what that says about the Giants versus the Eagles.
Giants
going into the
trying
playoffs.
to get some momentum.
Yep. Even with their bench players.
Yeah.
Steelers, Mike Tomlin, impressive beyond belief. Turned this team around from an awful start. Brought Kenny Pickett, the rookie, in.
They showed up this last weekend. I didn't give them a chance, but lo and behold, they showed up.
Mike Tomlin gets another winning season.
Yep.
Mike Tomlin's streak of 500 or better continues. That man, he commands a room when he talks.
He does. He gets what he can out of those guys.
Yep. And then, of course, the Cowboys embarrassed themselves against the Commanders in Washington. Another team playing their third-string quarterback.
Yep, that Commanders defense showed up.
Yep.
To play very well. Dak Prescott looks like garbage still. What was it?
The one interception, the one pick six he threw was unforgivable because he threw the pass,
and
then the guy almost picked up, and he threw the exact same pattern. Threw the exact same pass in the exact same pattern to the exact same side, and then they take it back for the pick six.
Inexcusable.
So that's why when we get to our picks here in a minute, it's going to be really interesting to see where we go with some of these teams. And then finally, the Saturday night game, which meant a lot. It was for the AFC South crown. Now, unfortunately for the Titans, they were on their third-string quarterback.
Yep.
And Joshua Dobbs, given the fact he'd only been in camp with them for a couple weeks when they brought him in.
Didn't look that bad.
No, but you could make an argument. This is another thing. Like the Bengals getting screwed here. I'm not hearing a lot of people talk about this either. The big fumble that the Jaguars ran in the fourth quarter to take the lead and eventually win the game. You could make the argument his arm was going forward.
You could. Very much so.
It was brought up briefly and then dismissed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, Jaguars win 20-16. Going into the playoffs, Trevor Lawrence in his second year now, maybe finally coming through on the promise of that number one pick and all the hype.
Yeah, they're starting to kind of put it together a little bit.
Yep.
And they've got a solid damn coach to get them there.
And here's one more thing. This is an example for the Bears. Now that they hold the number one pick, just remember the Jets had a chance at that number one pick and ended up winning a meaningless game or two at the end of the season a few years ago that knocked them from the number one pick back to the number two pick. Let's just say Trevor Lawrence looks a little bit better than Zach Wilson.
That's an understatement.
All right. It is wild card weekend. 6 games on the slate here. Right now, 6 of our 8 panelists have their picks in. Starting off Saturday afternoon, January the 14th, the Seattle Seahawks go in to San Francisco or Santa Clara to play the San Francisco 49ers. I'm sorry. This might not be the biggest point spread of the week. This might not be the biggest blowout of the week.
But it's probably the biggest mismatch.
If everybody was healthy, this would be the biggest mismatch. But since the Seahawks actually are healthy,
they're healthier than the Niners.
Well, and some of the other teams that we're going to be talking about here too. So even though I give the Seahawks a puncher's chance. Marshawn Lynch ain't walking through that door. He's too busy eating Doritos
and Subway.
Getting pulled over for drunk driving. So that 49ers defense is too good.
The offense is clicking right now.
At least for another week, the myth, the legend of Brock Purdy will continue.
Yep. Niners across the board for the panelists. Then we go. Chargers fly cross country down to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. You would think we would all probably be salivating over the Chargers. Not so, my good listeners. One reason. Mr. Staley as the head coach of the Chargers versus Doug Peterson.
Yeah, Brandon Staley played his starters in the final game, even though it was meaningless against the Broncos, and a couple guys.
Abysmal.
Joey Bosa left the game. Mike Williams left the game, both with injuries. I know it's better. It's better to be on Chargers Island than Cock Island. Let's just put it that way. I am on Chargers Island. Everybody else going with the Jaguars.
It was not an easy pick, but Peterson versus Staley.
I'm looking at the talent. I'm looking at the fact that I think Eckler's better than ETN. I think an extra year of experience for Herbert gives him the edge over Lawrence. The one thing I want to see that goddamn Chargers defense step up.
For once.
If Bosa plays. You got Khalil Mack. You got Derwin James.
Where the hell is Khalil Mack been?
The Jacksonville Jaguars defense right now looks better than the Chargers defense, and that's unforgivable, given the personnel on that Chargers defense.
The Bears actually are looking pretty damn smart for getting rid of Mack. Because he has been non-existent.
I still don't think they got quite enough, but you're right. I get what you're saying. This isn't the Roquan Smith deal.
No.
You got rid of a guy maybe when he was just starting to go on the downside of that career slope.
Yep.
All right, so Chargers for me, Jaguars for the other 5 picks in so far.
Yep, now we've got the Dolphins going up to Buffalo without Tua. Come on, this is a no-brainer. It's Bills across the board.
Yeah, and this is what I was getting at talking about the Seahawks, where the Dolphins without their first stringer, arguably, possibly their second string quarterback, relying on Skylar Thompson. In Buffalo, come on.
No,
come on.
Nope.
No way in hell. Here's an intriguing game. Oh, look. No, wait. I'm not alone on an island here.
Nope. You've got Doug with you.
Jeez. Can I go back to Cock Island? Giants going into Minnesota to play the Vikings. Now, they just played a few weeks back, a close game. The Vikings won on a 60-plus yard field goal.
Yeah.
The Giants rested all their starters last week, getting them a de facto bye week. Brandon Staley, are you listening? Brian Daboll knows what the hell he's doing in his first year as a head coach. You're in your second. He rested Barkley. He rested Daniel Jones.
It's going to be a good game.
I just don't trust the Vikings. I don't trust Kirk Cousins. Kayvon Thibodeau is becoming a force on the defensive side of the ball. He is going to be doing a snow angel next to Kirk Cousins as he writhes in pain. Giants with the upset.
Vikings at home. There you go.
Doug and I take the Giants.
The rest of us, the Vikings. All right. Ravens at the Bengals in another rematch.
In another game where, again, as I alluded to at the top of this, another team that is not healthy. Now, here's the thing we got to talk about. Is this hurting Lamar Jackson's reputation? Is he sitting out on purpose? Is he sitting there
snowflake?
Going, oh, my knee, just because? Who is going to pay him $250 million?
Nobody.
Because now he is abandoning his team in the playoffs. He might be able to forgive it if he was resting when he knew his team was getting into the playoffs.
Right.
But he was going to make his triumphant comeback. Now he's not going to play against the Bengals.
If he is able to play and he's sitting himself out, shame on him. It shows he does not have any kind of commitment except to himself. Nobody is going to pay him that kind of money.
If I'm the Ravens,
I let him go.
I'm looking to trade up. Call the Bears. You've already got a great working relationship after you hosed us for Roquan Smith.
Yeah, no shit. It's
so
time
why
to
don't
pony up?
Yeah, make good. Come back, give us some draft picks. So you take the number 1 pick. I would say Lamar Jackson is toxic. I wouldn't want anything to do with him. No way am I giving him $250 million. He bet on himself.
And he lost.
He
lost badly. It's not a good look. I'd be
shocked if he gets more than a 1-year deal. He might get more than a 1-year deal, but he's going to have to take a massive per year cut.
Oh, absolutely.
From what he expected he was going to get.
And he cannot just bank on being great for 1 year. That might parlay into maybe a 2-year deal.
And again, we're talking about a guy, Marquise Brown, wanted out. Went away to Arizona, from him. Went to Kyler Murray because he wanted to go to a better situation. That tells you how John Harbaugh is stuck right now. That front office is stuck.
They're hosed.
And if I was them, I would say we got in the playoffs, one and done, because we all got the Bengals.
Yep. No. If anybody wants to take a chance.
Rebuild. You got a great leader now on the defensive side of the ball.
There you go.
I would let Lamar Jackson walk.
Yep. And if somebody wants to,
go after
give him a 2-year deal. 1 year guaranteed. The second is a team option. No guaranteed on the second year.
You got to remember, you can bring in a Derek Carr. You can bring in a Jimmy Garoppolo.
They're out there.
And I think John Harbaugh, please, get me a guy who used to like Joe Flacco. I want Joe Flacco back. Younger Joe Flacco. We'll get to Joe Flacco later, by the way, as well. Finally, what could be the most intriguing
And did we
game,
say Bengals across the board?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Monday night, January the 16th, Cowboys at Buccaneers. Dallas plays Tampa Bay. Now, as I recall, early on this season, the Bucs did beat Dallas. But the Bucs have struggled mightily this year, having to come from behind in a lot of their games. I don't understand how a team ages so quickly from 1 year to the next. Tumbles! Excuse me. Pardon me.
I know.
Caught a bug.
Here it's Todd Bowles versus Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, is this the toilet bowl of coaching or what?
Yeah. Yeah, this isn't like you were bringing up earlier, Doug Peterson versus Brandon Staley, where there's obviously one great coach and one terrible coach.
This is 2 abysmal coaches.
Yeah. I just got to believe the talent on the Cowboys will prevail. They're a little bit younger.
But
I know Dak scares me with all the interceptions he's throwing.
That defense has not shown up the last few weeks.
You're right. Last half of the season, they have definitely dropped off. Micah Parsons has not been the same.
That secondary is susceptible.
But I just don't know if the Buccaneers have enough. Now, we saw Mike Evans finally come to life a couple weeks ago in that big win over the Panthers. Godwin's reliable.
It's the GOAT.
I know. This is where I'm saying. I said it last segment. I hope you're right and I'm wrong on this.
God, it's me and Doug on Buck Island.
There you go. Dave and Doug going with the Buccaneers. Everybody else of the 4 other picks in go with the Dallas Cowboys. All right, kids, there you go. That is our wrap-up for the NFL and Wild Card Weekend. Now, luckily for us, to save time, so we don't have to do 4 segments this week.
NCAA, 1 game, the national championship. It was an absolute slaughter. Georgia Bulldogs destroyed the Horned Frogs of TCU. back-to-back championships. There you go.
65-7. 60. I turned the game off when it was 31-7, and then I see that was like a minute and a half left in the second quarter, and they scored another touchdown.
Yeah,
it was 38-7 at half.
TCU did not prepare at all. They tried to maybe emulate what Ohio State did. They should have prepared like they did for Michigan to be disruptive.
Yeah, I saw a great
and it was just bad.
A great quote from somebody who said, "Yeah, I really enjoyed that national championship game between Georgia and Ohio State, and then for some reason Georgia decided to play a team of high school all-stars in an exhibition afterwards."
That pretty much sums it up. But
lowest rated title game in terms of viewership since the BCS began in 1999, 17.2 million estimated viewers across all of ESPN's platforms.
Now, is it again because Georgia was in it for the second year in a row?
Well, here's where I'm going to get upset if this comes to fruition. I almost texted you. I kept looking, and I'm doing a double take and a triple take on Monday afternoon. Why do I keep seeing 7:30 kickoff? Why do I keep seeing 7:30 kickoff? Don't they usually screw us all over for the West Coast and start the game 8:30, 8:45? Sure enough, 7:45 kickoff. I'm like, holy mother of God!
They actually got it right?
They listened to us. Now, the bad ratings. If they decide next year to go back to an 8:30, 8:45 kickoff and blame the fact they started the game at a reasonable time for the East Coast.
Nobody watched it? No. Nobody watched it because nobody wanted to see Georgia play again.
Well, and plus, it was a goddamn blowout by the end of the second quarter.
So everybody bailed.
I bailed. I didn't watch the second half.
There was no point.
I figured if it was a miraculous comeback, I'd watch it on my DVR.
Yeah. See, now we watched preview for the weekend edition. We watched the Glass Onion Monday night. Tuned in for the end of the game thinking it was a late kickoff like it always is. Yeah. And lo and behold, holy shit, it's the last couple minutes and bye-bye.
Yeah. Yeah, they actually started the game at a decent time. For once.
And they did not.
And I just hope they don't use that as an excuse for this low rating number. I really don't.
Well, that'll make me mad. You were Monday, you were looking to see when it started.
Right.
They did not do a great job advertising when the kickoff was.
Nope.
They never said anything leading up to it.
Nope.
There was no advertising for it whatsoever.
Nope, because I was thinking, I can get a half hour of Monday Night Raw in before the game even kicks off. And then I saw, holy crap, 7:30.
Yeah, so shame on ESPN for that crap.
All right, locally, of course, Notre Dame. We should mention in the final AP poll, since that came out after the championship game, Notre Dame didn't really move. They beat South Carolina in their bowl game, but didn't really move that much in the polls. Number 18 with a 9-4 record.
It's the record.
Yeah.
That loss to Marshall, the losses to Marshall and Stanford. Unacceptable.
Now, I double-checked this, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong on this, but they announced the class, this year's class for the College Football Hall of Fame. 21 players and coaches get in this year?
What?
I swear to you, this is what I saw. 21 players and coaches are getting in this year to the college football. That's a little much.
That's a little ridiculous.
That's participation trophy stuff.
Yes, it is. No.
If somebody out there can prove me wrong, go ahead and do it. But I swear to you, I saw 21 players and coaches getting in this year into the College Football Hall of Fame. That's a bit much.
That's ridiculous.
And then finally, of course, we talked about in the pro section that Jim Harbaugh was on the list of candidates for the Broncos. Could it be because Jim Harbaugh and Michigan are currently under NCAA investigation.
Yes, and Jim himself is facing a level 1 violation for not participating or complying with requests for information.
I heard he out and out lied, is what I'm
There's
hearing.
that too.
Yes.
So maybe he needs to have his parachute in place.
Yep. But I say no to the Broncos.
No, you can't go to the Broncos.
The best place for him to go, back to the Colts. I think he'd be fine with the Colts.
Would be good there.
They're going to get a top pick. He's going to get a quarterback most likely, especially after what Chris Ballard said.
Yeah, that would be the best landing spot for him.
All right, couple minutes left here in segment 2. Let's move on to NASCAR. Some NASCAR news this week.
Yep, we're talking about Jimmy Johnson announcing that he will be driving the 84 for, what was it, Legendary Motor Club?
David, Petty GMS Racing has changed their name. They are now the Legacy
Motor
Club.
My apologies.
It's okay. Dave doesn't have his glasses tonight.
That's right.
I have to guide him through. He can't read his notes.
That is Legacy. Yeah, Legacy Motor Club. The first time in NASCAR history that the Petty name will not be associated with the team.
That is kind of sad. I don't know what the reasoning is behind this. I didn't see. I know there was a little bit of a change in leadership at the top.
A little bit, but with the Legacy, with another ownership group, Jimmy Johnson coming in, Jimmy and Richard, 7-time champs. 2 of the only 3.
Call it the 7 club. Call it the 7 motor club, Something, I don't know.
Yeah.
What do I know? I don't know.
But
I just do a stupid-ass podcast every week.
So, whatever.
Dave, I have got your TV viewing for the next week all set up.
Oh, God,
right here, right now. You are going to be February the 3rd on Freevee. Of course, Amazon's Freevee. Now, initially, I was excited when I heard this because I thought it was Roddy Piper. But no, the documentary Rowdy will debut February the 3rd on Freevee.
I am not watching shit about Kyle fucking Busch.
You love Kyle Busch. What are you talking about?
No.
Yes. If anybody out there, I don't know who you are, would want to watch the documentary about Kyle Busch, Rowdy, February the 3rd on Freevee.
Now, if it was about Rowdy Yates, Clint Eastwood, then I'm all in.
That's what we got. Plenty of rowdies that we'd rather see. Roddy Piper, Rowdy Yates, Rowdy Ronda Rousey. Come on, we can keep going here, kids.
Oh, God help us.
Shifting to F1, Andretti Autosport has partnered with Cadillac as they try to firm up their bid to get into Formula One.
Yep, Michael's trying to get the foray back in for another straight-up American-owned F1 team. Haas is there, but he bought into one of the European teams to get going. This would be a straight-up American-run team. And Michael he did not get the backing when he made his foray into racing in Formula One. He went in there and they did not give him the equipment. They kind of poo-pooed him as the American driver. So he got the short list over there at the time. So I hope he can pull this off and stick it to those F1 entitled elitist pricks.
Well said, my friend. All right, finally. Southeastern short tracks. Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jeff Burton, Kevin Harvick, and the new king of autosports with the way he's making his mark, Justin Marks, no pun intended. Those 4 have bought Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour, CARS, some kind of an acronym, whatever.
Yeah.
Easy for you to say.
An acronym.
Anachronism, whatever. But is based in Southeast short tracks with these guys' late models. These guys grew up in.
Yep, that's what they cut their teeth on. And
yep.
Cool, that's the grassroots racing. I like it.
We're seeing a lot more involvement and a lot more of these with the SRX series, a lot more of these smaller localized tracks getting a lot more attention.
As they should. Very good stuff.
All right, segment 2 is over. Segment 3 coming up, kids, including a lot of dumbasses. We'll be right back. Feeling mildly fatigued? Need a day off even if you just took one a few days ago? Make $30 million a year but just don't want to work for it? You need to join the NBA Load Management Club right now. When they're not napping or texting, guest lecturers Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving will describe foolproof ways to earn tens of thousands of dollars by not doing anything. Sports Frenzy 2.0, available on Spotify, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, is currently negotiating with LeBron James to bring his popular How to Make the Hall of Fame Without Really Trying webinar live and in person to the Load Management Club. Thanks again to Sports Frenzy 2.0 and all you apathetic fans out there for making us a success. All right, kids, January the 11th, 2023, second episode of 2023 for Sports Frenzy 2.0. I'm the maestro, Kevin Crane.
I'm the conquistador, Dave Height.
One final segment to get you through, but we're not done for the week, of course. Saturday morning, check out the weekend edition where we will review the first half of Season 4 of Doom Patrol. Glass Onion, as Dave previously mentioned. Our top 5 albums of 2022.
Hooah!
I will review Part 1 of Season 5 of Yellowstone and Season 1 of Tulsa King. Dave will have a review of Nelson DeMille's book, The Maze. So stay tuned.
We're never covered.
It just keeps going and going and rolling. Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. Check out The Godfather if you don't get that reference.
Baseball. Didn't talk much about baseball last week, if at all, so we got to catch up a little bit. I know the one thing that we were going to talk about that we didn't get to was the probably last massive deal of the season. Rafael Devers stays with the Boston Red Sox 11 years, $331 million. But sorry, Bo Sox fans, not all good news, because right after you signed Devers to that 11-year extension, your big signing from last year, Trevor Story, undergoes elbow surgery.
Oh, my arm.
He will be out most of the year and will not be able to play golf with Judge Smales. And again, Godfather reference, Caddyshack reference.
Boom, you're welcome.
So the Bo Sox are probably going to be relegated to, at best, third place in the AL East. Yep. Now, the saga, the drama,
the Correa.
Jesus Christ, did Jane Eyre write this or what? Carlos Correa, finally, we've resolved the issue.
Why did he even opt out? He's going right back to Minnesota.
With all the medical issues, the Giants backing out because they didn't like what they saw in the physical. The Mets do the same thing. As Dave said, Carlos Correa goes back to Minnesota, 6 years, $200 million. Now there's vesting options that will kick in to protect the team if he meets a certain number of plate appearances, it will kick the deal up to a 10-year deal for $270 million total.
Yeah. A much more reasonable versus what everything else that transpired. They didn't go nutsy cuckoo.
And the best thing about it is a mid-market team gets
Landed
the
a whale.
superstar, and the Mets go back to not having a great offseason, but just a good offseason. So, ha ha! Ha ha!
In your best Simpsons Nelson voice.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, if the Mets still want to make a splash, Trevor Bauer's out there.
I would not put it past them.
I'm telling you, I wouldn't mind
Somebody would.
I know somebody eventually will dip their toe in that pool.
The cesspool?
Probably, I would imagine not this year. I would imagine 2024. They're going to let this thing cool down a bit.
Yep. So we'll see how that all plays out. Yes, he can play right off the bat, but teams are going to be cool on him. You gotta take your fan bases into consideration, kids, because there's been a lot of a-holes out there that teams have signed, and there's been some serious backlash from the fans. So you got to be careful.
Just ask the Cleveland Browns.
There you go.
Now, before we get to our teams, while the news was not good for one New York team in baseball, the Yankees have decided, okay, we re-signed Aaron Judge, we brought in Carlos Rodon, but now in the front office, we are going to bring the greatest minds ever together. We're bringing in everybody to figure this thing out from the front office perspective. So you've already got Brian Cashman. Now you're bringing in Omar Minaya and Brian Sabian, the architect of the 3 Giants World Series victories. So you're going to have 3 of the best baseball minds in that New York Yankees front office this year. How can they not win? Oh, I forgot.
You can't.
Aaron Boone's still their manager.
And you still can't keep buying older players. At some point, they're going to actually have to develop their own talent.
Can I make a point about that? It seems to me, I follow baseball, not as much as pro football, but I follow baseball. Cubs, the Yankees, even the Mets, they seem to be scared to death to bring up their young players and actually just say, let these kids play. I still have not seen much from 2 years ago when we got rid of Rizzo and Baez, and those guys haven't really much sniffed the major leagues. And I see the same thing. I keep hearing from the New York radio about the Mets. Oh, this year will be the year when the prospects come up. Yankees. This year will be.
They don't.
When
they
are you
parlay
going to
them
let these
into
kids
more
play?
veterans, and then they languish in the minors elsewhere.
I agree with you. These teams are so reliant in baseball on the veterans. We just talked here just a couple hours ago. News hit that 42-year-old Nelson Cruz is signing with the Padres.
Ugh.
We can look at the Marlins. Marlins just poached one of your pitchers. The Marlins bring in Johnny Cueto for much less money, by the way, than you paid for Steve Clevenger.
You think? That pisses me off. I wanted to keep Cueto for another year. I did not like
roughly $4 million less a year.
Yeah,
for one.
I
did
year,
not like
the. I do not like the Clevenger deal. I would have rather have had Cueto for another year.
They also brought in Jane Segura, so you're starting to see the Royals, the Pirates, the Marlins now are taking the leftovers when it comes to the free agent market.
kind of the appeasement to the fans. See, we signed free agents.
Hey, the Cubs did it too. Cubs bring in Eric Hosmer. Now that's a league minimum deal, so I can't bitch about that because I believe the Padres are still paying his deal.
Yeah.
So, but now with the White Sox, unfortunately, the news is not good.
No, really hope for the best in recovery for Liam Hendricks. Just recently diagnosed and starting treatment for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's beatable. They caught it early enough. His health is the most important thing right now.
Hate to end baseball on a downer note, but there you go. Real quick in NCAA basketball news, we talked about Chris Beard, Texas head coach. Again, we can go back to what we just talked about with Trevor Bauer, domestic violence. The minute you end up in that situation, rightfully or wrongfully, you are going to have issues. It's going to destroy your career. And for right or wrong, there are times when I say, let the justice system play out. But unfortunately, that stink, that taint will never leave you, especially if you're a man. Chris Beard fired as Texas head coach.
He's filing a lawsuit for wrongful termination.
We can also bring this around to one of our dumbasses of the week from a few weeks ago. Dana White, of course, another man involved in a domestic violence incident, slapping his wife.
In retaliation for her slapping him.
But in the irony of all ironies, what does this do? TBS decides to push back the premiere of that stupid, dumbass power slap league that we talked about. Now, when I brought that up in the dumbass segment, number one, this stuff with Dana White had not happened yet.
Right.
But I didn't realize they had gotten a national platform for this on TBS.
God, it's a dumb idea.
Grown men standing there, putting rosin on their hands, slapping each other in the face. That is what this society has come to? Seriously?
You know, I heard rumors that they were having Will Smith as a spokesman.
Hey.
Too soon?
Eddie Murphy last night at the Golden Globes.
His third thing that he learned.
Keep Will Smith's wife's name out your damn mouth. Yeah, I toned the language down a little bit.
Yeah. Oh.
One NBA game of note that we have to bring up happened last night, the 10th as we tape, the 10th of January. The Miami Heat got a 1-point win over the Oklahoma City Thunder.
With one historically impressive stat.
The Heat go 40 for 40 in free throws in that game, including the game-winning shot.
Beating the former high mark of 39 for 39.
40 for 40, that is impressive.
Anytime you hit 100% from the charity stripe, it's pretty damn impressive.
Well, especially when you got 40 shots.
That's a crap ton.
We're not talking 8, 10, or 12 in a row. 40 among all the team.
From everybody.
But this game also featured a hysterical ejection. Now, the Heat were running low on players. They only had, I think, 9 dressed for the game. So one of their bench guys got ejected for throwing a massage gun on the court. He slapped it off a chair or something and went flying onto the court.
Oh, shit. Oops.
And everybody thought, where's Deshaun Watson? Massage gun. And finally, my last thing before we move on, we don't have moments of silence this week, unless Dave does.
one just hit.
But before we get to that, I have a conspiracy theory.
No, not for sports. Sorry.
I have a conspiracy theory, and then we will move on and play Red Foreman's Dumbasses of the Week. UConn, women's basketball. UConn, their game with DePaul last week was postponed because they didn't have enough players to play the game, and Gino Auriemma wasn't feeling well. Why do they get to postpone the game? Is that not a forfeit?
That should be a forfeit. If you cannot field a team, that's a forfeit.
That's what I don't understand. How is that not a forfeit on UConn?
That is a forfeit on UConn.
No, they're going to reschedule the game later. Bullshit. Anybody else would have had to forfeit the game. Anybody. Gino Auriemma would have been screaming if it had been on the other side. The other team.
Oh, they can't field a team. They forfeit.
Yeah. What the hell is going on with women's basketball? This candy-ass bullshit. Because you got to kiss Gino Auriemma's ass?
Screw him.
Forfeit the game. If you don't have enough players and the head coach is sick,
guess what?
Forfeit the game.
This isn't the COVID year anymore, butt munch.
Yeah, can you tell we don't really like Gino Auriemma all that much?
Douchebag.
I apologize. I forget our new format. Because before we move on to the Red Foreman Dumbasses of the Week, positivity.
That's right.
Positive news.
The Clint Eastwood Badass of the Week award.
Dave and I both have a few. So
yep. I have to give a shout out to the Detroit Lions social media team for their brilliant trolling of the Green Bay Packers. Absolutely awesome job cutting up all of Aaron Rodgers' egotistical, arrogant comments against the Lions and shutting him down. Absolutely brilliant and hysterical.
I had a dream the other night about Aaron Rodgers.
I'm sorry.
Not that way. It was after the Lions beat the Packers. I dreamt we were in a bar. The whole Sports Frenzy crew. Aaron Rodgers was there. And we drank our fair share and we sent the bill to him. And you know what we said to him? We said, well, since you own the goddamn Bears, you might as well pay the bills.
Nice.
Sorry, I was just kind of subconsciously basking in the glow of the Lions win.
I like it. Very nice.
All right, I have two, not one, but two Clint Eastwood badasses of the week. Number one, this is sad because I heard today an update and he is still in critical condition, especially after what happened with Damar Hamlin. This is very sad. He was the cover player for Madden 2012. Of course, didn't have the most illustrious of careers, was really good for a year or two for the Cleveland Browns.
Yep.
Moved on, I believe, to the Giants for a time. Peyton Hillis is in critical condition after saving his kids as they were drowning.
Yep, on a family vacation.
Got him out of the water, but unfortunately he inhaled so much of that nasty water
that it's got him.
I don't know if this is true for sure. I heard today they're still bringing sand and grit out of his lungs.
Oof.
But
we hope for the best for him.
Yes, he is a Clint Eastwood badass, saving his children at his own possible life's expense.
Which any parent should do. But would anybody?
Right. In this day and age, I don't know. Some yes, some no. But Peyton Hillis is a badass.
Definitely.
And then, kudos to Nyheim Hines. He is a Clint Eastwood badass for me as well. Nyheim Hines, after the emotional turmoil that the Bills went through with the Damar Hamlin situation, they needed a kickstart in their game against the Patriots. So what does he do? Nyheim Hines, who they acquired from the Colts a few months back, returns the opening kickoff for a touchdown to give the Bills fans, the team, that uplifting moment they needed. And then what's he do?
He backs it up!
He does it again!
Not once, but twice!
That, my friends, is a badass.
91 and 101. Or,
Yep.
Was it? No, not 91. It was 97. I don't know. It was deep. But the other one out of the end zone. Boom. Way to go, Mr. Himes.
Yep. All right, David, step up to the podium. I will put on my Alex Trebek suit. It is time for the last 10 minutes here in segment 3 to play Dumb Ass or Not.
Yes.
America's favorite game show.
Yes, they are.
And of course, coming up here in just over a week as we tape, speaking of Red Foreman, the premiere of that 90s show on Netflix. Kids, we will be reviewing that
Looking
in a couple
forward
weeks
to that one
on the weekend edition. Now, a couple of these we've alluded to, so I'll burn through these real quick. I think Dave will agree with me on these. Number one, that awful Kansas City Chiefs spinning ring around the Rosie huddle.
That was absolute crap.
Arrogant bullshit is what that was.
It has no place in the game.
And I got a little mini diatribe here because we talked about the most hated teams earlier in the show. And I don't understand why the Chiefs keep getting a pass. State Farm keeps putting Andy Reid in its
scumbag
ads after what he did and what he facilitated with his drunk-ass son, Britt, ruining that young girl's life. He should not be joking around in ads.
No. He should not be in ads, period.
And now they pull this shit, this arrogant bullshit. This is arrogance beyond anything I've ever seen in the NFL.
That's bad, even by today's standards.
I hope the Bills, the Bengals, whoever it is, kicks the shit out of the Kansas City Chiefs. And
amen.
Knocks them down a couple pegs. And we talked about, of course, Jaron Reed's forearm to DeAndre Swift, but what happened afterwards warrants a dumbass of the week. Quay Walker, after what we just saw again with Damar Hamlin, perspective, people. All those people that came out to save Damar Hamlin's life, the trainers, the medical personnel, Quay Walker, as they're tending to DeAndre Swift.
The team physician.
A Lions trainer.
The team's physician tries to just gently touches him on the arm, trying to get to his player. Excuse me. And Walker turns around and shoves him.
And rightfully was ejected from the game. And then his teammate, don't have his name, he came up and was acting like he was going to do something too.
Yeah.
This is, again, why the Chiefs, the Packers, both can kiss my ass. They are top of my list now along with the Cowboys.
And this is Quay Walker's second ejection for pushing somebody. Because playing the Bills, one of the Bills players was in street clothes on the sideline. And Walker shoved him out of the way and got ejected from that game as well.
And then he tries to play the pity card, and they show him coming down the tunnel after he's been kicked out, crying, and saying, "Oh, I gotta get." Yeah, you gotta get control of yourself.
How about you get some anger management therapy, dumbass?
All right. We talked about Joe Flacco briefly earlier. His career may be over. We don't know where his future lies, but. Of course, the Jets played the Dolphins down in Miami. Joe Flacco plays for the Jets. Nice father moment with his kids. Invites them to the game, brings them down. Because, again, could be his last game.
Yep.
they both wear Tyreek Hill jerseys. I don't know who the dumbass is in this situation. Is it Flacco? Probably Flacco.
For
because
letting
he'd probably
his kids
say, could you wear my goddamn jersey?
This is for me, and yeah.
But Tyreek Hill's our favorite player, Daddy.
Kids these days. You'd at least... He's a dumbass for at least not slapping his own jersey on him before the game and then letting him wear him after that whole little rigmarole.
My man. I can't believe he's in our dumbass segment, but I got to put him in here. One of my favorites. Shaquille O'Neal. O'Neal.
Oh, Shaq.
On the NBA's awesome show with him and Ernie and Kenny and Barkley said that if TCU didn't win against Georgia, Shaq would eat a horned frog.
Deep fried in chocolate, I hope.
Well, here's the thing where I get a little upset with this. He said he was going to eat a horned frog if TCU didn't win. Now they're saying, well, he just has to eat the legs. So now he's like, he's eating frog legs. Horned frog legs. I think he should have eaten the whole damn thing. Frog. Shaq, don't make that kind of bet. That makes you look like a dumbass. I should be keeping track. How am I doing?
Oh,
so far?
We're all on.
All right. Now here's one where I might have gotten, I don't know, catfish, whatever, snowballed, whatever they call it. Remember a couple weeks ago I mentioned that I'd heard that the first legal sports bet placed in Ohio was Pete Rose.
Right. Now we're hearing
that it was one Bernie Kosar, former University of Miami legend, and of course in the pros, played for the Cleveland Browns, worked for Cleveland Browns radio. But Bernie bragged about the fact that he put down a $19,000 bet on Cleveland. Can't do that.
In the NFL, if you are a part of any organization, you cannot place a sports bet. Let alone on your own damn team that you broadcast for.
And guess what? Bernie got fired.
What?
And this is not the first. He's had incidents with alcohol abuse.
He's had issues.
And I love Bernie. Bernie, I personally love the guy in terms of Miami, even when he was with the Browns. He was like that quarterback that was tall, lanky, goofy, gawky, but somehow was smart enough to make the plays and make the throws. But something happened to him. I don't know if he couldn't adjust to post-football life.
Concussion issues.
But yeah, Bernie keeps making bad decisions.
Yep. Sorry, Bernie, you're a dumbass.
All right. This is just personal for me. But this goes back to last week's discussion about Chris Sims and the Nepo babies. I flipped on one of my new favorite sports shows this past week, The Carton Show on FS1.
You respect my thoughts.
Craig Carton, of course, formerly of the Boomer and Carton Show. Of course, did time for gambling, issues and pyramid schemes. And now he's come back and he's a raving success because he's like us. He's a loudmouth who just talks about sports.
Who got lucky.
Crude jokes and yeah.
Where's our money and our chance, people?
But here's the problem. He's got a rotating guest on his show. He's got Cody Decker, and then there's a third person. Sometimes it's Greg Jennings, former Packers wide receiver. I turn it on this past Thursday. Matt Sims. Matt Sims is his expert guest host. The nepotism with the Sims family will not stop.
Were they talking about spleens?
What the fuck did Matt Sims ever do to deserve us? At least Chris Sims, I know, played briefly in the NFL. I know he played for my Bucks. What the fuck did Matt Sims ever do to warrant that kind of a spot?
Not a damn thing.
Screw nepotism. And by the way, screw SoFi Stadium. Now, I know they were having all sorts of storms and shit going on during the national championship game. It was amazingly raining in the stadium.
Well, yeah, because it's open side, so all
Right.
the wind's going to blow everything through.
But here's the thing that really sucks. They banned tailgating before the TCU-Georgia game.
They've banned tailgating at every national championship game.
That's sad. That's sad.
Because they offer their own.
I figured it was just a California bullshit liberal Democrat move.
It's an NCAA thing at every national championship game. Tailgating has been banned.
Wow. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Finally, Texas A&M men's basketball team get a technical foul before the game even starts last week. Why? Because they left their jerseys back at the hotel.
Delay of game.
Delayed the tip-off. They get a T for delay of game.
Somebody in the equipment office is losing their job.
All right, so how'd I do? Pretty good?
Pretty good.
Close to 100%?
Yep.
All right, kids.
There we go.
That'll do it for Sports Frenzy this week.
Check out the weekend edition on Saturday morning.
Glass Onion, top 5 albums of 2022.
The Maze, Doom Patrol.
We are your hangover cure, kids. Check us out. We will check you out for sports next week. See ya.